Today we're going to talk about being demeaned because it's a big part of the perpetuation of the MK Ultra programs here. Handlers are often used to trigger us, to create frustration in our lives, and also to demean us and to undermine us, for us not to believe in ourselves. It's pretty common to find some of these love bombing MK Ultra handling style with different types of handlers around us. They may flatter your ego one day and then demean you the next day. And something I've noticed with many handlers in my life is that they don't truly encourage your expansion, your accomplishment. They will often not actually mention them at all. Even if it's right in front of them, they will just ignore everything that you are able to accomplish because it directly threatens maybe the power that they still have in your life. It's threatened this control energy that they come up with. So they're not going to be there to celebrate your progresses. And you often find that these handlers refuse to take a responsibility for a part of their shadow, and they deflect a big part of their process onto others. Other types of techniques and tactics that you can find that are meant to target your sense of identity are labeling, or making you feel like your value is reduced. And if you've been idealized in the early phases, it might make you feel like you crave this person's attention now. You can really trace that you're not receiving these kind of hits that you were receiving in the beginning. Another one of their manipulation techniques of these handlers are often to minimize abuse. It is abuse of itself not to recognize that something really wrong has been taking place and that suffering has been experienced as a consequence. And this is something that you will find with beings who have narcissistic characteristic features and tendencies, is that they will not acknowledge the full impact that their behaviors has on you. There are many ways to subtly, covertly, or more overtly putting someone down and devalue them. Ridicule can also be used, when you feel humiliated or embarrassed in front of others because someone is overly abusing you. But it's always smart not to react to that, because it's one of the way handlers are used to get you in the interface actively. It's because of that reaction, that frustration, that anger, that wounded ego, right? Another method is to withdraw affection or completely ignore you, pretend like you don't exist. It's also very devaluing as an experience, especially if there was a strong bond at some point. In the narcissistic literature, you will find the term stonewalling, and this refers to when someone is refusing to participate in the communication with you. Now, it's different than ignoring mean comments. All the targeted individuals here, the fire creation beings expressing online here, have to deal with mean comments. And it's no problem to ignore these comments and not to engage with them, not to give them a minute of attention. It's very different when you're genuinely engaging in a communication and you're being ignored. So you can be given the silent treatment. You also can be gaslit. It's often part of the whole package. And I refer you to different videos that I have on my channel about gaslighting and the effect it has on our psyche. With these handlers, we're often in a trauma-bound relationship where we have an unhealthy attachment to someone who is repetitively abusing us. It's very common. If you're honest with yourself, you can trace it back in your life, all the times where you really were believing in that reality with your handler, only to realize a little bit further on the road that you were mistaken. You had a psychic hook. You were not seeing and perceiving the true frequency signatures. That's what happens when you break free from mind control. It takes a while. It's always an ongoing process. And it takes space. That's why the system wants to keep you busy, keep you afraid, keep you busy chasing money or these kind of things. So you don't have that space and time in silence where you can process really a lot. What is extremely confusing in that dynamic is that at the beginning you add rewards, and sometimes you might still get rewards and then being punished, and you don't fully understand this push-pull dynamic. A lot of people don't understand this push-pull dynamic because they are not beings who are applying these push-pull dynamics in their life. And this push-pull dynamic also tends to develop an addiction to the relationship because of the rewarding parts. And all of these techniques of manipulation are there to invalidate our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and our needs as well. And if you try to express that one of your needs is not being met or your boundaries are being crossed, usually it's not so pretty how it is being received. So you are left doubting yourself and blaming yourself, maybe feeling guilty about looking for shadow maybe you don't have, or something must be defective with you if that's how you end up being treated. That's also one of the bases of the MK Ultra programs. So often you end up falsely blaming yourself, and even sometimes apologizing just to ease the tension that the silent treatment are bringing to your reality. Silence often forces you to react because you don't understand this behavior, and it can go pretty far into triggering your wound of non-recognition. Often with these kinds of handling style, you will find external authority programming being active. And it's especially active with beings who, again, are on the narcissistic spectrum. That's one of the reasons why they are recruited as handlers as well, because they have this shadow in them. If they're not, and you will feel it, even if they're working on their shadow. If they can minimize some of this negative impact, but usually they are not. And you're left reading between the gaps, all the things you could have done better, or that you're not a good enough person. You often find also a lot of projection and deflection going on with them, unconsciously projecting part of their identity, often parts that they have trouble accepting themselves, onto the exterior. Some of these omega alpha handlers also will make you feel like you're not going to be able to handle your life without their presence in your life. It's easy to witness when you're not being encouraged in building more autonomy, more independence, and being able to rely on yourself. These handlers will often make you doubt yourself, so you cannot rely on yourself if you don't align or agree with them. And of course, the perceptions of others have an influence on us, even if we know who we are. You can feel that psychic pressure, and it's just not nice. And it does participate to just the general low self-esteem, distorted mirror reality that we find here. I had many different handlers all my life, being extremely demeaning, putting me down, overtly, covertly, subtly, not so subtly. It's also the principle of the gang stalking. You know, you find a lot of mean comments that are just meant to target your ego or bring you into reaction. A lot of them are AI attacks, you know. It's a little bit of the same principle as the algorithm on social media, showing you things that are going to trigger you as well. So you can have many different types of handlers. Some are backdrops, they are not real, they are spiritless. Some are real with abilities, some have dormant abilities, some have more active abilities. A lot of us have been placed in families that were handled, often with someone around us who was demeaning. It's a MK Ultra reinforcement. I also saw my mother, who was real, being demeaned all of her life by her handler partner that she separated from at the end of her life. And he greatly participated in her psychological and emotional torture, as she thought he was real and she thought what he was saying was real. So this type of handling is very cruel, and it can lead you to self-destruct or to activate your suicide programming if you're not picking up all the signatures that are going on. And it is extremely frustrating to deal with a condescending attitude and a patronizing attitude. If you're a woman, fire creation here, you will have had a lot of patronizing male handlers around you. And we see why the feminist discourse is quite incomplete, because it doesn't take in consideration all these simulation aspects of what's real and what is not. And if you don't address that, then you're not going deep enough. So generally, you also see them, these handlers, undermine other people around you, because they're not only undermining you, they undermine others while they are with you. Maybe in the beginning, at the beginning, you might be the one who is flattered, but next around the corner is your turn. And when you're breaking ties with handlers, it might feel really difficult, painful, and horrible. It's how it's programmed here, where a lot of the decisions that are really good for us programmed to feel horrible, or can be programmed to trigger guilt, especially with any boundary setting. We also find a lot of cognitive dissonance, where we don't fully acknowledge that we've been undermined and demeaned. We find justifications about these hidden aspects. We are picking them up, but we are not fully facing them. We are also dismissing gut feelings. But you can definitely feel that your boundaries are being crossed or pushed, that you are made to feel unworthy. Sometimes you are made to feel falsely blamed. You are made to feel humiliated. It's part of the dehumanization protocol, very active in to keep the MK Ultra programs very active in our lives. It can be about being dismissed, being ignored, because it targets your wound of non-recognition. These handlers, they might also imply things by what they say or what they don't say. And you can tune psychically to what they really think. And you will be picking it up in the subtext of how you feel as you are being treated a certain way. So you are being devalued, which means that you are being underestimated. Like your worth is being underestimated. Healthy relationships usually deepen with times. If after a few years they get weird and you notice that they started with a lot of love bombing, and that you feel that these compliments are not really there anymore when you connect to how these beings are seeing you, then you have one of your red flags here. Of course, being demeaned can make you angry, upset. It triggers your self-esteem. You might feel insulted, or you might feel insulted when they try to compliment you, because you can pick up that it's still so very limiting. What they see in you is condescending, make you feel stuck at a 3D level with a picture that has nothing to do with who you are. They actually don't know who you are at all, or they may talk to you as if you are retarded, not up to their level. And the way they see you, the way they perceive you is belittling. It's on the demeaning side, even if it's not conscious of their part. They can be really programmed to interrupt you. This is really difficult to have a conversation with someone who is constantly interrupting you. It's not really pleasant. Of course, when you feel inadequate, when you doubt yourself, you are not really power standing. And if you dare to set boundaries, they might invert what's been really taking place, and there you will be feeling really guilty if you believe in the story they are projecting back to you. And guilt is often the lie that comes after an assault, when you are standing up for yourself and setting boundaries or trying to understand what's been happening, and they feel threatened and they don't like it. So it's easier to put you in your guilt, where you're going to be busy for months and maybe years just looking at shadow that you don't have. Because your boundary is not going to be received really well if it's not something they want to talk about, and they have not decided to talk about it. And they don't like you. They don't like seeing you setting healthy boundaries for yourself either, because it's the threat, and you are, walking away. You are building self-love. You are making progress. You are loving yourself. You are respecting yourself. You will also find unsteady commitments and promises they don't keep, or they change their mind, but they don't really manage to consider you or to make you feel considered. It's totally okay to change your mind, but then how you're going to present it to others does matter. Also, I find extremely interesting all that is left out of the conversation with these type of handlers, all that is left unsaid, unspoken about, all that is being ignored about who I am, what I do, and our actions also can show who we truly are. I'm in a phase in my life where I really appreciate to work with other healers, where there is a true bond, a partnership and an allyship. And I've walked a long path to meet strong allies in my life, especially the last few years. And to be surrounded by such high caliber being now makes a great difference. I think there are a lot of MK Ultra beliefs like I need to suffer to heal, or being abused is part of the process, or things like that, that makes us accept being abused maybe for too long. And of course, it's understandable when you know about the MK Ultra programs, like all the stages that are required for us to break free from abuse and break free from cognitive dissonance as well. Maybe in the first place, breaking free from denial, acknowledging and then processing all the layers that need process. And for that, again, we need time and space, and being very kind to ourselves as we are grieving and processing some of the heavy layers of this type of abuse that can be really extremely harmful for all the reals who are believing this is true about them, who are believing the mirrored image. And that is tragic and sad. But I remember we've all been there at some stage in our life. So it's really a personal work to get ourselves out of these dynamics and decide we want to experience something else here on the game map, in protecting our corner of reality. And this process of standing up for ourselves really comes with different steps. It's not gonna, you have to take yourself through the steps, not always knowing what they're gonna look like, but you can really take yourself through and see what you need today. And you might need 2 weeks of self-care, self-nurture day, and that's okay. There will be a moment where it will balance by itself. And I think a lot of us have learned to be this kind of gentle, parental presence for ourselves. Maybe a few of us had to really learn and remember because it was very rare in their or our daily realities, right? But somehow we have the memory of realities where it doesn't work on this inversion principle as it does here. So this memory can grow until becoming an embodiment in our own lives, and a frequency signature that resonates and attracts new higher types of frequencies. And something I realized is that some of the ways I've been handled in the past, the structure is the same, where it targets me is the same, the manipulations techniques are similar, though the templating is different. But if we know we've been taken advantage through certain points, certain entry points in our lives, it's often going to be a common denominator for our experiences, one after the others. So the disguises might change, they might take other forms, they might get more refined, more sophisticated, more complex, more powerful. But I like to realize that a lot of my work has always been talking about this. And I can find a lot of layers in either my articles or some of my videos where I can listen to them and they apply to my today reality. So this is the gift of the coders, to approach this reality with a multidimensional perspective and to benefit some of the wise words we also sometimes speak ourselves for ourselves. Being undermined is a big Endler template, very active here. A lot of fire creations are left believing a lot of false images about themselves. And it's also great that a lot of us are digging deeper and deeper into these layers, understanding so much about the deep hidden aspects of these endling dynamics and breaking free from them and asserting ourselves with the new us and the new frequency we hold as well.